Committee meeting to order. Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Oh, that's Scott.
Mrs. Abuda.
Here.
Mr. Ruiz. Mrs. Geiger. Mrs. Edwards.
Here.
Mr. Steingart.
Here.
Ms. Vedder.
Here.
Mr. Samuelson.
Here.
Everybody have an agenda? Cora, do you have one?
No, mine's on the table.
Okay. Okay, let's start with the easy stuff first, and then we can go and talk about the transportation, plan that we're, gonna have an update on. The first discussion item is about cleanup in, the town of Rockland. Kitty, has come to me several times and shown me there are houses in the town of Rockland that are on the edge, that are gonna be going and flowing into the brook up there soon if we don't take care of them. The town, was concerned about the tonnage. Every year, each supervisor's allocated X amount of tonnage, and there was an issue up in Rockland, and Kitty wanted to know if the county could make an exception if they go over the tonnage. I think that the exception should be made. They want to clean up the town of Rockland, clean up those homes before they go into the brook. So I thought I'd bring it up for a discussion item for this body. So Kitty, you want to add anything?
I just want to make it understood, and thank you, Kathy, for bringing this here. The town of Rockland has been working with both their town supervisor and their highway department, and also soil and water, and working with Ed and working with FEMA. This is a result of Sandy's storm, I believe, and the cattail piece of the creek.
Mm-hmm.
And what ended up happening is the river moved itself, as rivers do, and it moved over and undermined totally a number of houses, 3 of them to be specific. And when the person who lives in one of the houses sought outside engineering, they were told that you couldn't do it in one place. You had to do it further upstream to fix the stream. And the first piece that needs to happen here is to get these houses that are more than this table length hanging in the air over the stream out. So Ed Whiteman worked very hard with the families who own those places and has made an agreement now to get rid of those houses. It's the construction products of those houses that we're asking this body to allow to be moved to the landfill. It wouldn't include the concrete, it wouldn't include that kind of thing. And if we don't allow that, I don't know what's gonna happen as far as the town having funding to get rid of. And if they just sit there, they're gonna knock out the bridge further down the road.
It's a
Bridge
safety
right
issue
below.
too now,
How
so.
many?
There's 2 homes that need to be taken down.
So they have some tonnage left from last year,
Right,
right, Ed? So,
What we're looking at is, and what we talked with Kitty about, is the municipal cleanup tonnage. I've gone through the rules, I don't see anything that says you couldn't bring in, we allow C&D in. The towns run their own programs, we designate a certain amount of tonnage. There's nothing on our disbarred list like tires and all of that. They have 34.5 tons right now available to them to do this at no cost, based on what the town of Rockland has in tonnage right now. So the structures may not even exceed that, so we may
They
be
predicted
within that.
15.
Yeah, so
So
we
it
should be
would be-
within the tonnage allowed as well.
I don't think we need a resolution, Ed, do we? No, just.
Are we just saying, this is their tonnage that would be used this coming cleanup?
No, this is what they have for
They have it left from
2014.
14? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
But
This
they
is-
can do it at any time.
They
Yeah,
wanna get this
we've
done
allowed
now.
it to go outside of the time, so we're trying to do it this year with them.
Okay.
But if we okay it,
They can do it at any
that's
time.
the request of the board right now.
I have no problem, but did the owners try to go through their insurance company first?
Yes, they did.
Okay, that's all,
It was
And-
discussed at Soil and Water in a lot of detail the other night.
that's all I wanted, I have no problem with that, I wanna be clear, but if there's coverage, why not take advantage of it, that's all.
Okay, so,
They've used up all their other options.
Okay.
okay, Kitty, so just tell the supervisor that, it was approved by the committee and they can start,
I
you know.
think also, since this isn't a resolution, if I can just ask Ed,
Yep.
once we know how much tonnage it is, if if you can report that back to us, because I think what we should do is set up some sort of emergency fund, so that when these kinds of things happen, we know that that money is there, because it's gonna cost the county for that additional tonnage, right?
This is, okay, this is, the town of Rockland has tonnage under the municipal cleanup program that we authorize every year.
With
So,
all, along with all the other.
all the other towns.
Right.
They have 34.5 tons
Mhm,
that they have not used,
Mhm.
allocated to them.
mhm.
And they're talking about utilizing some of that 34.5 tons,
Mhm.
estimated at 15,
Mhm.
to do so.
Right.
So it wouldn't exceed their tonnage that they have right now.
Okay, but what I'm suggesting, given the amount of flooding that we have, given that this isn't the only town, if, for the sake of argument, they use their 34.5 tonnage that they
Mhm.
are allocated for this, then then that's it, right? They've used their tonnage, because it's under, right? August came and went, they didn't use it, they still
Right.
have this allocated.
Correct.
That's why I'm suggesting that, you know, in the future, it would be good for us to have like an emergency fund that we tap into when flooding takes place and these kinds of things happen, because right now we don't have one.
No, we do not.
Yeah, so I just
Um,
think it would be,
Yeah, and
is
it's a
there any
matter-
reason not to do one?
That's just a question of the board, whether they wanna dedicate funds to that.
Be budgetary.
How
Yeah,
much
at
would you
this
like
point,
to-
we don't dedicate funds.
How much would you
even
like to dedicate, Cora?
To this.
I have no idea, it depends on, what I said is that you report back to us what, you know, an average amount is for, you said there were how many houses?
2, and they're estimating, like 15 tons,
Yep.
like double
So,
wide.
yeah, so they're gonna
modular.
be at their allocation by the time this is over, so I'm not an engineer, I don't know, you know, I can't off the top of my head say I want X amount allocated in emergency fund, I just think it's something
We
that's
have
prudent
them-
for us to look at.
But Cora, we do have a, contingency fund anyway with the county, and it goes over his budget, he could just
Yeah.
calls Josh and says, I need an extra, whatever it is, I mean, that's why we have those.
We have done resolutions in the past to do cleanup,
Mhm.
that has exceeded things, so we have convened with the legislature and said, here's an event, this is what we have, and have an actual,
Mhm.
hard numbers to something, and gone that way in the
Yeah,
past.
so once we
With
have the hard
flooding.
numbers, then it's easier to go forward and know that over a 5 to 10 year period, we've needed X amount of tonnage due to flooding. And I think that will help us when we have our FEMA assessments come and our IA assessments come. It's good for us to have those figures. So that's, at this point, I'm gonna drop the request for emergency fund. It's obviously too much resistance to that.
No,
but just
no,
to
we
give
do
us
it
the
on a case by
figures.
case whenever it comes up. We have
Yeah.
done that before, when an event happens similar to this. We
So I'm
come with a
re-
specific, cause sometimes it'll be woody debris that we gotta deal with, or it's a building debris, or a bridge went down.
So I'm reassessing my request.
Okay,
Rather than go through all this trouble of setting up an emergency fund, which obviously isn't gonna happen. Just give us the figures of over a certain period, look at the resolution, how much did we actually need? So that when a situation like this comes up, it's clear, because the flooding isn't gonna stop.
no, and my question would be then, are you asking for the declared events as well as the undeclared events? Cause the declared events we've gotten funding for, and we have all the records on what was brought in. And then we've also had undeclared events that we've just dealt with out of ourselves, like we're trying to get to $2.8 million yet for this year's flooding that occurred, to a different agency, but we've had other floods in the past that don't get declared that we take care of either through CHIPS or our in-house funding
Right.
sources. That's one set of numbers that I can come up with, as opposed to ones that are actually been declared events over the years.
Well, you'd have to, put that out so that it's clear what is declared and what isn't. What I think, has happened in the past, if we're able to show that over a certain number of years, we have had this cost associated with this flood event. Because when FEMA came, they said, if, for example, a community gets wiped out, and we know that's happened in the Manor several times, and there's certain economic indicators which show that this community is not gonna come back economically, whether it's 4 houses on the road or whatever. Right now, we don't have anything in hand to say, this is how much it's cost us in clearing debris, this is how much it's cost us in the road repair, and so we need to have something in hand to say, this has been devastating to us economically, and this community will not recover. My understanding is we have it.
We have it in certain locations, Kohlertown in particular.
Mhm.
We've been seeking funding for a bypass there where we actually did surveys of all the residents affected in that area in order to come up with a cost-benefit analysis that triggers to allow you for funding from FEMA in their mitigation program. We have not triggered over into that as of yet, but we have consistently done that. It was a very large amount of work that we did just for that one area in order to come up with, because when you're doing that, you're assessing both individual and public assistance combined
I
into that
understand.
one. So, I mean, we sent out flyers to every individual homeowner in that area for what your
Okay, well, I'm
damage has
officially
been.
withdrawing my request for figures.
Okay,
No, I'm just
next.
saying, we do that on a regular basis,
I'm done.
in order to try and do that. It's just, we can do anyone's you'd like.
I've withdrawn all requests.
Okay, let's move on then. Ed? Okay. So Kitty, so if you'd let the,
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I will definitely think them, Ed and Ted
Let
will
them
be very
point-
happy
okay.
to hear this.
thank you. Okay, the transportation coordination plan update, Ed or Fred, do you wanna start, Ed?
Yeah, what we wanted to do, as you know, we received a grant in the amount of $75,000.
Thank you, Art and Mary Allison, I wanna
and-
recognize them in the back, they worked hard on those
There's
grants,
been
thank
a
you.
number of people working on this. We are up to our consultant has issued their third update. They started with the first draft, second draft, third draft, and are headed towards their final draft. We felt between Fred and myself, Art, and Mary Allison, it'd be a good time just to kind of give you guys a little bit of update as to where it is. We have an upcoming biannual grant that we apply for through the state for transportation at this time. We do it every 2 years. This year, based on the study, on the report being prepared by the consultant, we're looking for additional items within this grant to expand the public service. So we'll be looking for some larger buses in our application going forth this year. There's also a transportation coordinator position being recommended at this time, to run a more involved program out there, and some driver positions coming up. We'll be putting in for funding on those. We'll be requesting that in the near future, and a grant concept approval form has been drafted up by Freda, and it's been the Arts office, we've been talking about that, so. It has there's been a proposal for several new routes that would be open to the public, in addition to what Shortline has performed for us on the old blue route. So, some going to the hospital, so that we have, in case people have appointments there throughout the county, so.
Fred, did you wanna?
Yeah, I'll add.
Fred to
a few
jump in a
things.
little bit?
Just, in terms of the consultant deliverables, there are 3 what are called technical memos. They start out by doing, the inventory, what we have, then there's, a tech memo analyzing it, and the third tech memo was, okay, we've looked at what you have for transportation in the county, not just in terms of what the county provides, but what's being done by all the social service agencies. There were, a lot of, direct research into, stakeholders, interviews with all the providers. We did a survey. We had the consultant come out, I think maybe late September, to give a presentation to the legislature. At that time, we were nearing, I think, 1,000 surveys, transportation user surveys, as well as the actual provider surveys. So, we had a fair amount of data to put in. And then the third tech memo that was presented to the project committees in late October had preliminary recommendations. And those recommendations are really focused on the upcoming grant opportunity. We've gone back to the consultants and, for a full and finished plan, and said, we'd like you know, a full spectrum of longer-term recommendations, saying, okay, you know, this is what you apply for now, and then in the future, you know, how to work up to, I think, you know, the ultimate goal or sort of the vision is, you know, a transportation system that isn't necessarily segmented by provider, but creates some efficiency by, you know, coordinating the different agencies. We're not there, that's gonna be a long haul. But in the initial set of recommendations, what the consultant has focused on is, you know, how can the county take advantage of this upcoming funding opportunity? And, you know, we've been funded at a certain level over the years, and Ed can jump in and, you know, correct me on this, you know, based on the level of services that we provided. And it's the consultant's opinion, you know, whether it's a valid opinion or not, and, you know, he has checked in with the agencies at, you know, at the state level, that we could, you know, potentially be eligible for substantially more funding if we ramped up the service, to be, you know, to provide sort of, you know, not a deluxe model, but a model that could, you know, really fully be considered public transportation. And he's created a proposal that would expand some of the existing routes, sort of expand the hours on either ends to provide commuter service, you know, so the timing would allow people to get to work. You know, as Ed mentioned, he's proposing that some of the shopping routes also stop at the medical center, so they're not simply shopping routes, but something he's billing as lifeline services. You know, yeah, they may only operate one day a week, but they'll be there to let people do what they need to do, get their essential needs met. What he's come up with as a proposal is something that would involve, you know, buying a few additional vehicles. It would certainly involve more drivers, expanding the routes, and all of it, he believed, would be eligible for funding under this upcoming, what's called a 5311 program, using what the county currently spends on transportation as a match. So in other words, he's kind of scaled the project and the proposals to what the county could do if we used our existing transportation spending as the required match. And certain activities are eligible for more or less, you know, funding under the program. So for example, the draft recommends actually two positions. It recommends a transportation coordinator to address the county services and, you know, manage the county bus routes and, you know, hire the new drivers and do everything the county needs. And that position is eligible for a 50% match funding. They're also recommending, and we don't necessarily have to buy into this, but they're recommending a second position called a mobility manager. And that position is more, I think, something that would be looked at in the longer term to coordinate all of the transportation providers in the county. It wouldn't necessarily, that position wouldn't necessarily have to reside in county, it wouldn't necessarily have to be county staff. It could be with one of the other social service providers that uses a lot of transportation services, but the idea is that that position would look at the larger picture of coordinating.
These are two grant-funded positions?
These are two grant-funded positions, and what I'm getting at with the second position is that's eligible for 80% funding. So, you know, I haven't parsed every activity, and I don't think the consultant has done yet in terms of, you know, what's eligible for 50, what's eligible for more. But the, you know, first round of number crunching that they've done is to, you know, come up with a program that he believes would be fundable based on what the county's currently spending. So we wouldn't spend any more than we're spending now. We ask for a lot more. The ask is something in the order of $800,000. I mean, I have the exact numbers here, but it's going to change. But it would involve a you know, county commitment to use its current spending, you know, as the match for that. Some of that match would come from, you know, the current DPW spending on transportation. Some of the match would come from what Family Services is spending on transportation. And it wouldn't necessarily be county money, but it could be money that is, you know, coming from social service funding for projects, programs rather, to get people to doctor's appointments or jobs or, whatever. But, that's really basically the idea is that they've scaled the proposal to what the county could commit. Nevertheless, it's a fairly ambitious request. It's a fairly, bold request. I think, that there's been a bit of a tension there in terms of identifying what's feasible for the county to do in terms of ramping up its transportation. What could we do in 2 years? Could we do all of this? Versus, wanting to demonstrate to the funding agency that the county's gonna go forward with a commitment to actually have, public transportation again, so that I think their recommendations are to ramp up to a scale that would impress the funding agency for, to provide the funds to do this. I've asked, okay, so we get this, it's a 2-year program, we're on the hook for vehicles, drivers, whatever, what's the likelihood of it continuing? They've told us,
Who's the they?
they is the consultants. And we, we also need to check in with the funding agency as well, although they've been on the, communicating with the potential funding agency, Art and Mary Allison have as well, that, once you're in the pipeline for this, it's typical for, the transportation program to get ongoing funding at the level that they're funding you at.
There's a transportation committee that's been meeting for what, about 2 years, Freda? With,
I have, my history doesn't go back that
Okay,
far, so I
okay.
can't say 2 years.
And I think we'll all agree that the county has an inadequate transportation, it's not adequate for our county, however, it's a big undertaking, and if we had, a couple $100,000 and we could buy more buses and we can get our seniors to more places, but, so I think starting off small and getting this grant money is a big, is a plus.
Right,
So-
although, I mean, the starting off small, the grant money would be a big request. I mean, they're recommending that we apply, for a, fairly significant amount to demonstrate commitment to the
Which is,
program.
what is the amount, do you know?
The amount is, as I said, in the vicinity of $800,000.
And then the coordinator's gonna help, obviously, because Ed needs more help down
Coordinator
in
you
the,
would need.
to
Right.
help, and then,
Yeah.
okay?
The amount, $884,186, which is, this is a reimbursement program. The county's gonna be reimbursed on a quarterly basis, so for the first 5 or 6 months, we'll be looking at probably a cost of $710,000.
But no county share, right?
Well, at this
The
point, no.
match.
Okay.
The match can be satisfied through other sources, be
Okay.
it federal or state, and we have to be careful about how we do that.
Okay, and so, is there, okay, Kitty was first, and then I'll go around. Kitty?
Sorry.
Okay, I have a
Thanks.
number of questions
Mhm.
that I have about this. First of all, I thought that we had a transportation coordinator, Donna Bassett, years ago. That's my first piece. I think that was the name. She used to take care of who was running the blue route, the whatever route.
We had a number of them in the past, yeah, Maureen Barber was the last one, really, that was.
So don't we still have that?
You can't get them at the store. No.
Before they put it in their DPW, honestly, 4 years ago.
It was Dolores.
Oh, that was it,
It
Dolores.
was Dolores,
Dolores is
Dolores,
still our
right,
dispatcher.
used to be the
She's not a
dispatcher.
coordinator,
Right,
she's
she's
a
the
dispatcher.
dispatcher, mm-hmm,
Okay,
mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
she's still with us today and very helpful.
okay, so it would be a different task for her than what is?
No,
present?
currently, she is in charge of dispatch, this position at Dolores. And oversee, make sure everybody gets assigned their routes, and she also assists with doing some of medical transportation. The coordinator would oversee the transportation department as a whole.
Okay. My other piece of the question is, will there be set routes? Will there be a way to collect minimal fees? Since it's going to be public transportation, will they be different from the short line routes? Is there gonna be a hookup to the short line route? So I guess,
Pretty much yes to
Yep.
all 4 of those,
Yep.
in all
Yeah.
honesty. That's the
That's what we're working on,
intent.
right.
I mean, honestly, that would be the intent. We
Right.
do collect fares now for our general public ridership, and that would continue. We would try to tie to other transportation hubs, be they Shoreline or any other one that came up as something we wanna tie to. I know I heard,
so I guess I'm looking at, are we talking about, outside of the main routes? Things like Liberty, Monticello, Lock Shelter, Are you looking to service the people up in Willowy Mock or Turnwood or wherever and bring them to the main places to go? Is that the purpose
The
of this?
look at it right now was, part of the study, and you can correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong,
okay.
was they looked at the centers of population where there would be a need and are trying to go to that. As long as there were enough potential ridership, say in Little Weemock, and it wasn't just two people, if there was enough that they thought they could actually get some ridership to come to it, those are the ones we're looking at right now. Not necessarily straight up like a taxi service.
I was
If it
gonna-
was,
So say the college,
I
I
was
mean,
Gonna
people.
jump
Yes,
in.
college,
The
yes.
college is definitely on the routes, but the focus, of the service is the county's population centers, you know, Monticello, Fallsburg, Liberty. You know, I did get a preliminary set of schedules yesterday from them, and they're proposing to add one additional daily bus that would serve, along 17B, you know, out to Bethel and Coshocton. And that would be a substantial change from, right now, there's daily service, you know, via short line in the Liberty, Monticello area. There
Right.
is no daily service, you know, out west, so that's, you know, one example of the change that they'd be, that they're proposing.
So we're not trying to compete with or anything with short line, we're trying
I
to
know,
expand routes
and
to
work-
other areas like 52
And
or
work with 'em, right.
17B
Mhm.
or,
Mhm.
is that,
Enhance, yeah, and perhaps even enhance shoreline, maybe with
subsidize
additional
shoreline.
hours.
I know
realize
that, that's
that.
why
Yes.
I'm like, okay, we
And
don't
Kitty,
need.
one of the complaints I get, and you probably get them too, because it's always focused on the larger townships, but this would be like Lumberland, the western part of the county, because it always seems like the bigger townships get all these services
Right.
because they have more of a ridership.
Right.
With this program, want to enhance it so that people from your area and that part can all be part of this. It's, you know, so the more funding we can get and the more buses and service we can provide, the more of our riders we can have for our constituents. So this will expand it, because now it's not,
Yeah.
it's just it's located to the bigger townships and stuff, so that's part of the plan, depending on, you know, the funding we get,
Thank you.
okay? Alan, you were next, and then Cora, Cindy and Cora, Alan?
Yeah, I would like, I like the idea of the transportation coordinator, I think it's a position that's needed.
I
With
agree.
respect to the request for 850,000, I would like to see something in writing from the funding agency that the county wouldn't be obligated
Mhm.
to maintaining that level of service in the future if funding weren't provided in the future. So I don't wanna create an $800,000 annual
Right.
Yeah.
expense for the county if,
I mean,
without federal funding.
what I was, you know, in our internal discussions, we talked about, billing it, if we get the, you know, the funding for the first 2 years as a pilot project, because, you know, you don't even know if, you know, the ridership will come forward. It's gonna have to be looked at as an experiment on both sides, you know, or we're gonna get continued funding, or we're gonna get ridership is gonna work for people.
I would need some assurance that it could be set up as a pilot.
What?
I would need some assurance that it could be set up as a pilot, and that it wouldn't obligate the county to maintaining that level of service in the future without federal.
We definitely do have to improve our service though because of the funding that we have received and, you know,
That's why I'm
we're
asking the
definitely on,
question.
we do have to improve our service one, you know, and it may
I
be a
still wanna
portion of
double
this
down
plan,
on-
it may not be the full-blown
expanding
plan, but we definitely have to enhance the program that we have now.
That's why I do support the transportation coordinator position.
That piece is important.
Yes,
right
it
now.
is.
Okay, Cindy and then Cora?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I've been involved in different phases of the survey, transportation survey. But do you plan at any point to put together a summary of those recommendations so we as legislators can kind of identify where the focus is? You know, what areas are prioritized?
Absolutely,
Yes.
and we were planning, to have the consultants back in January to do, you know, presentation.
Yep.
Again, we haven't set a date because we understood
And so
that some of
what's
the
the
dates were
timeline of
changing
the
for the
grant
legislative
funding?
meetings.
What is that?
The grant is a biennial grant we apply for every 2 years. It is both capital and operating funding into that. As far as I've been involved in previous to that, we've always applied for capital for buses. Our ridership, our program is not sufficient that they have authorized us to buy buses at this point and fund those. They do give us, they call 50% of your operating deficit funding in your operations budget, so we have gotten that consistently throughout every year. And We do an annual report, and then every other year, we do an application to this funding, which is coming up. This opportunity will be here,
Okay.
released in the near future.
And as far as the transportation coordinator position, is that something that needs to be created as a new position, or could that function be carried out by, some
No,
existing staff?
that'll be a new
New
position.
position.
We don't,
Okay.
we don't have the staff.
Okay,
So
and
what-
one more quick thing. I know that, the veterans have proposed transportation from a bus that was being worked on in BOCES. And I know they'll have, I know Kathy is addressing in her agenda the cost of maintenance and like that. But is there any piece for, a situation like that where we're trying to fill a need, say at the nursing homes for the veterans to be able to, go home for holidays, different things like that, in that plan? Or is that more, a municipality short line bus piece?
I would say, and again, this plan is more towards general public ridership, not so much just for a veterans agency or that. The funding that we get is not necessarily for OFA or for that. It's the funding source we're seeking right now wants to be open to the general public. So if it was
okay.
just to the adult care center, it wouldn't be funded under this. There are other agencies that might fund that, but this particular.
It can't be? Or
No,
it
this is
can have
open,
it?
this funding is
Okay.
for open public ridership,
Okay.
completely open to the public.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's mostly focused on short line bus routes, blue line bus routes like that?
Well, it doesn't have to be those particular routes, but that particular type of service,
Okay.
that it's open.
I just want to add that we have had some discussions with Howie Goldsmith and the Veterans Coalition concerning applying for funding to address the
Okay.
operating costs in relation to
Okay.
the transportation of the bus. And we have a meeting set up, the 17th, I think, 17th will be.
And one more question, as far as the consultants doing their study, for 2 years, did they focus on the ridership numbers, the volume of, people that they predict will be transporting from Liberty or from Monticello? It's gonna be different, Liberty, Monticello, Lumberland, Jeff, Calhoun.
Mhm.
So they have that information
They have
too?
the studies
Right.
and
Yeah.
studies out.
Right,
They did.
and as I said, in terms of the tech memos that we received, the tech memos 1 and 2 were really focused on, population and ridership and things like that.
So if somebody has low numbers in Calhoun, then that wouldn't be a part of the summary recommendations, or is that?
There is a recommendation, to have, a 1-day-a-week
Okay,
lifeline
that's
service
what
from
I wanted to
Calico.
know. Okay, thank you.
Cora and then Cora.
So who's pushing the $800,000 price tag?
Pushing it, it's what was developed through the consultative discussions with the division of department heads.
Okay, so it's a consensus that this is the
Believe so.
number that everybody's gonna go for.
I believe so.
Well,
Just to be
as I said,
clear,
I think
they've done some, what I call back of the envelope math and 30,000 foot, here's conceptually how this is work. I think what we're trying to get to now is, all right, here's our existing routes and what it costs. Here's the proposed routes, which I think he's working on consultant, we haven't really
Mhm.
seen it, and what is that gonna cost to run, have employees? Cause some of the recommendations are like commuter routes, which would have, if we're doing commuter routes, we need drivers on at 6 in the morning, at
Right.
7 at night, so that's gonna have a lot of overtime. So I think there's a lot of detail that needs to be worked out between now and we apply.
And we can take a
Right.
piece of it, or the whole thing?
Yeah, that's right, and then
Yeah,
we can
okay.
cost out each section to see how much, if there is a county share, how much it would be per, so you don't have to do, how many recommendations there are, 10 recommendations, you could take a handful in 1 year and a handful in another year.
So that would be for the discussion.
Yeah,
with the board.
that's what and I think we're kind of thinking the application deadline's gonna be roughly April-ish, so we're gonna have to spend the next quarter working internally and then with the board to figure out what exactly we're gonna apply for.
Well,
We'll work
I
on
think that's a
finalizing
really
the
critical
details.
point, Josh, because when you look at projects like the HEAL grant or like the radio interoperability, the plan should come first. Here we're talking about, we're putting the grant funding, and I'd like to see the cart and the horse in the right order, if that's the right way of saying what I'm saying.
That's what they've
So-
said, conceptually, the consultants think this can work, but we need to prove that it can work financially.
Well, what had happened when the consultant had come, the couple of times that I actually sat in on the meetings, I had said, what are some of the things that we can phase in that
Yeah.
don't cost the county a lot of money, and then work toward the medium and the longer term, so that we have a comprehensive plan that fits Sullivan County, and we don't have a consultant saying, this is beyond your means right now, try it as a pilot, see if you get the ridership. I have a bit of, I don't see that necessarily, that model, having been to those meetings. Where is the disconnect happening?
Okay, can I jump
Yeah.
in?
I'm asking the question to anybody who will answer.
Yeah, sure. Couple of things. The grant isn't driving the plan. It's an opportunity that came up simultaneously with the conclusion of the plan. So what we're looking to do is use the opportunity of that timing to have the consultant input on the grant, because
So the
it
plan's
represents.
already come out, it's in the
We
public
have,
domain.
we have a draft, and I'd be happy
Yeah, the
to
third
share that
draft,
to
yeah.
you. You know, the draft, it's not a final draft, because we've asked them to do more things, we've asked them to come back and, you know, tweak it a little bit. But they've come forward with their basic recommendations. And, you know, one of the comments on the initial draft is that the recommendations are reasonably short-term. They're in a kind of aggressive two-year time frame, and we have asked them to come back with recommendations that are more long-term and look at the, as I said, the full integration of the public and private sector. But this is the proposal and the recommendations that they've come up with based on what the county currently does and what they see as feasible for, you know, taking where we are now and taking it to a system where all of the routes would be open to the public, and we would be addressing some additional needs. So for example, I think the current transportation system is pretty much exclusively focused on social service transportation, you know, getting to doctor's appointments, getting, you know, the shopping routes, getting to food, you know, the sort of lifeline services. The survey that they did identified a need for a commuter service, you know, getting people to work. And so they've, you know, made some recommendations for how that can be accommodated by expanding some of the routes, adding some additional times. You know, the proposals, you know, are there in the plan first, and they're not wagging or rather the grant's not wagging the proposals, but it's just they're trying to you know, work them together. In terms of the numbers, you know, there is an understanding that the county isn't in a position to commit, you know, huge sums. So, you know, what they've crafted is something that they believe could be accomplished based on using existing county spending as a match to create a significant impact.
Yeah, and part of the issue, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, on what happens when you're starting to crunch the numbers on the match, is that they had pointed out to duplication of services, that given all of the county contracts that we have, there's a lot of that. And I don't know whether any assessment was ever made on that, because that would impact on what we're able to match. And I think that the public comment period for this is over, right?
What, on the plan?
My understanding was that the initial grant, was it 75 grand? For that?
75,000.
Yeah, 75,000, 75 grand. Included a public comment period on the plan, correct? That part is over? Am I
Yeah,
mistaken?
there were questionnaires sent out and requests for information from the public. Yes, they've gotten those back, and they're
Okay, so-
incorporating that into the
So the public
plan.
comment period time is over now, right?
You know, I guess it depends on,
Which
I
is
don't
in
think
its
it's
main
ever
1:30?
over until we complete the plan. I mean, we did circulate a draft to the committees, you know, final draft of recommendations to the committees, and we had their input by, you know, mid-November. That said, the consultant, because of the grant opportunity, we've kind of been shifting the focus of their time to sort of helping us craft the details on that. So there's still opportunity for you to review and.
So it could be
you know,
put on the
come
website, the public could comment?
back. Mhm.
Okay, because I'll cut to the chase. My question is piggybacking on Alan's question. I don't want us to go down the road with what happened with the ACC, where we applied and got $1 million grant, and then a couple months later, it's like, uh-oh, we have to cough up $1 million because of quote-unquote unforeseen circumstances. This is a separate issue. I just don't want to go down that road again, where in order for any part of the plan to actually, have liftoff, there's a request coming back to the legislature to put in an additional XYZ. I want to be eyes wide open going into it. Do you follow where I'm?
I do.
Okay.
And certainly, as Josh said, we've been going back on this for about 5 weeks now, and we'll probably keep doing that for another, couple of months, to get the kind of details that we need on, make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, I'll take, Kitty.
I had another question, and it had to do with the position, and I understand that we need that overseer, I get that, but since this is a pilot, if we put a position in within Public Works, somehow we don't seem to,
I don't think the whole thing is a pilot, to be clear. We definitely have to expand our public ridership opportunity with the funding we've received to date. Part of it is they're expecting a wider ridership. So while the state DOT and the FTA, which have funded the county over the years with transportation.
so we're then looking at another position within DPW to be funded that has not been requested at the present time in this budget. Am I correct on that?
You're correct on that.
Okay.
It has not been requested at all yet. It is something we're discussing right now. There is a need for the position, and there is a need probably for additional drivers, depending on what part of this would go. That's why we're bringing this out now. So you have early opportunity. We don't anticipate this grant being due probably till April.
But we're looking at
The opportunity to start applying it.
Public-private cooperation in this
Absolutely.
transportation.
Correct.
So in the public-private transportation piece, it is possible to have private
We're
do
certainly
the-
looking at that.
to the position.
It would be, there's two positions that were recommended in this, and the other, as Fred referred to, was the mobility manager. I've been not jumping on, we should go get that now, because that's one that coordinates all the transportation services in the county. That would be their role to say, hey, company X is going to point A, why send company Y there also? Let's see if we can combine them. It's a simplified version of what the plan is looking at, but there is a position for that as well. I don't know that that should be a county position or not. I'm not recommending necessarily that we pursue that at this time. The coordinator position for this is to handle the in-house stuff that's going on within Sullivan County Transportation Department and running that. As long as we're still going to have a department, we really have a need for that position. Prior to it coming to DPW, there were actually 5 people. We're down to one of those 5 right now.
That
is
was
all we
like-
have
But my
remaining.
question remains,
When
in this
It was under
budget,
planning.
Oh, okay.
in this budget, that position has
Does
not
not,
been
it
requested
has not been requested.
or anything.
No, it is newly recommended through this plan. I've felt it's been a need for the whole time we've had it. We've been doing without it, yes.
Thank you.
Ira, Cindy, we have to move on. Go
Isn't
ahead.
this just supposed to be an update, nothing's been finalized?
Right.
Correct.
We're like analyzing this like it's a decision we're making today. And it just seems like we're going way into depth in something that hasn't even been presented yet.
Well, we need information.
But it hasn't been
Upcoming
determined yet.
decisions.
Well,
Questions, okay.
Okay, I'll take
I thought
one
this was
more
a
question, and
discussion.
we need to move on. Cindy?
It's okay, it was.
Okay.
I think.
Okay,
it was a discussion item.
Yes.
thank you. Okay, now we're gonna move on to solid waste uncollectible accounts. That's not executive, is it?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Freda. Thank you, Art and Mary Allison.
It's a discussion, but it's Nothing's been filed.
Okay, you have something to hand out?
That's all I'm saying.
Nina.
Just telling us who they are.
Okay.
All right. This one we have Cheryl helping
Hi,
us with.
Cheryl.
Hi, hi everyone.
Okay.
Of course you will.
No, Annie.
Welcome over, Cal.
I think I have one. Yes. It's in you got one, right?
Everybody has a copy of Cheryl?
Not yet.
Okay.
Coming around.
Pass those down.
Right there.
Okay, Cheryl, you're up.
And what we want to do is update, I know we've had multiple discussions on all our accounts and where we are with them right now in cleaning up some of these accounts. What we want to present to you right now, there are several accounts on here that are old. That doesn't have the stuff on it, that, we don't have a copy right now, so I can go over it with you, but, gotta get my train of thought back for a second.
Switch gears.
Yes.
We already discussed transportation, move on.
Right. We have a number of accounts that have been on our books for years that are essentially uncollectible for a number of reasons. Several for the owner having been deceased, or the company going bankrupt, or just a statute of limitations. So there's a number of them that what we're coming to is we would like to write them off and get them off our books in short and simplified terms.
And to add to what,
Because what's happening, just so you understand also, is when you look at the bottom line of the total due, these accounts are getting hit with a service charge every month, and so it's inflated of something that's never gonna be collected. So it looks 1.3 is terrible, and we all agree, but a lot of that's inflated interest on accounts. If you look at the date that are being requested are from '07. So you have to keep that in mind.
And Sue Goldsmith in the Treasurer's Office, who's been wonderful in providing us this information, she has the obligation to carry all of these accounts forward. So the request has been made for authorization to basically write off the accounts for various reasons, so that there's a more accurate reporting every month on what's actually due from the haulers.
So how many of these are in
when we
collection?
started, it was at 1.5 million.
Well, it's been an ongoing.
It fluctuates monthly.
It does fluctuate monthly.
Cindy?
How many of these are in collections? Cause I see you have Zager on 3. Right?
Correct.
So are they
Those
still
are actively,
ongoing?
they're actively in collections right now.
So you're asking to write off this total?
No,
The
not
check
the Zager
marks.
ones. That was my
The
little
ones with the check
kind of
marks.
pathetic key,
Yes.
meaning the check marks are the ones
How
we're asking
difficult is it
for
to
the
figure this
write-off.
out?
And, just so
difficult is it to
in
figure this
our
out? Come
analysis, I put Zager where we
And
had
what's
sent
the
this
total?
out.
What is that?
Well, I'm not on this committee. I
We
can't say
have to
anything.
look at it, actually, what you really, and I don't think we have right here, is the principal on some of these is very low. It's the interest charges that have been accruing over the years on accounts that weren't collectible. We still charge interest every month to these accounts. So even if the principal started at $100, it may be reflected as 5,000 now. Because you just keep hitting them based on that sum. So each month, that interest is actually higher, because now your outstanding debt is higher. So we'd have to get you that one to give you a really accurate, what are we writing off here?
And that's what we would be writing off, is only the base amount,
gotta
not
go after them.
interest, but it would be taken off of the sum for future.
Right.
You would have that.
Kathy?
Lauren, yep.
Yep, so it looks to me like on the first page, the criteria would be, you know, that you're looking at something that's been there, like Nancy said, from '07. But then when you, '07,
Mm-hmm.
11, '09, and then you hit 11, 10, 14, and 12, 04, 14, and I'm just curious
Yes.
This is
as
the-
to what happened there.
Oh, you wanna, go ahead. Liberty Scrap Metal, it was a settlement reached, and this should just be zeroed out. There was a settlement, went to litigation, there was a settlement,
So they
amount.
paid.
They
They paid.
paid, and
The
it should be
settlement.
zeroed out.
Okay. And then-
Tri-State is, Nancy, is this the one that, Sue says?
They're
she-
okay, there
It's
was
just
one-
interest only since 2008, and she
Right.
wants it cleaned up because the people did pay,
Yeah.
and then it's just been a carryover for however 6
Yeah,
years.
that's a bookkeeping one that really needs
It's
to get
just an
addressed.
interest only, and the people were up to date, so that seemed to be an error, just an error. ADC resources dissolve, through the state. The only reason why, is this ADC resources the one that dissolved,
Yeah,
right?
I'm looking for it right now, but yes, yeah, I know they were
It's
uncollectible.
uncollectible, we attempted to locate, the principals, whatever, but it's a corporate entity, it's gone, and.
Well, that's from 11 anyway, I was
Yeah.
just stopped with
For
the
the 14 was a
Yeah.
settlement, and the other one was that Sue just brought to our attention that she's carrying forward interest only.
So
Alan?
it's about 25.
Hold on, folks, Alan?
It is
Yeah,
formally designed.
I've just looked at the ones that you have with the check marks, those
Right.
seem pretty logical to me. What I would request is that a new list be prepared that just has those, nothing else on it, so that, you have, what is it, 1, 2,
7.
3, so a list with just those 7.
Okay.
That would be attached
So-
to the resolution.
Oh, that's
Oh,
what we
yeah,
were going to do,
absolutely.
that's why we wanted to bring it to your attention, so you see actually what the status is.
This,
No, that wouldn't be the resolution, no.
The-
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so.
And then next
So
month,
written off is about $25,000?
I don't know the dollar amount,
That's the thing, like I
whatever
was
it
saying,
is.
to realistically understand, you'd have to look at the principal, and we could probably break that out. It's another thing Sue would have to do versus interest, because that principal that actually was owed to us at the time that wasn't made, like I said, could be $100, but if it's been since '07, it may be 5,000 now, because we charged an interest payment every month on a debt that was uncollectible. So it kinda gives it an inflated look. We wouldn't be able to collect the interest under Zager anyway, if I remember correctly. You can only collect the principal even if we could get it. So to be accurate on it, that's what it would be.
So if it's accurate that you couldn't collect more than the actual payment, you can't collect the interest, why is these even reflecting the interest?
The system just does
Because
it
they're treated,
automatically.
yeah, they're treated as open accounts, as if I could come in next week and pay my account. It's on the system as an open account, even though it shouldn't
And-
be. And under the current rules, if you're a month, I think we get 1% per month
Month.
interest. So that's the way the system bills the individual as if they're gonna come next month and pay a check. Okay, you owe us $100 plus $12 interest, give us a check for $112.
Yeah.
But it's year after year of that.
And we don't differentiate if this person, just so you understand, between a collectible and uncollectible. Now, if we do, this person wants to continue to come here, these are accounts that are no longer, these are going to be closed out accounts. However, if it was someone just behind and they want to continue to work with us, and we say, well, you owe us this and you're going to pay us your principal and interest, and then we'll allow you to continue to use our facility. Our program doesn't make a differentiation between those two things, and I don't think it really should. So it should always reflect, this is what you owe us with interest, this is what you go to pay us if you're going to continue to use our facility.
And
Okay?
I just have one last question, Kathy.
Sure, go ahead,
Okay.
Marcy.
We have account number 142 and 902, so it's one company with 2 accounts, and half of it is with Zager, right?
Okay.
And what's the hope of?
Okay, so we'll discuss, Sullivan County first, recycling. When we talked about the haulers, we had a note that we entered into as part of a settlement. And that's what we did last year, just around this time last year. That dollar amount, Sue placed in the settlement dollar amounts. If you go to the second page,
Yep.
you will see, 901 and 902 reflect the promissory note related debt.
Okay.
So that's, she made it a separate account because it was very difficult,
To
to
separate,
talk about a
yeah.
promissory note and ongoing hauling charges. Okay, going back to page 1,
Yep,
so that's,
I'm with you.
142.
yep,
There was a payment made, because we have enabled the 2 haulers to
Mhm.
continue to tip
mhm,
every day.
Mhm.
And if they tip every day, they come the next day or the day after with a check. So those payments,
Mhm.
should that's the balance on the ongoing amount that was not covered in the agreement.
So it's okay for me in my mind to think that one's a current and one's a past due.
Yeah, I'd say that's quite accurate.
I get it.
Okay, any other questions? Because we need to move on. We have a falling behind. Anybody else have questions for Cheryl or Ed? Okay, so you'll do the
Can we
one,
get a resolution
Bruce,
for
with the
next-
7 on it, okay?
with
For
that.
Scott's committee next, for the executive, is that okay?
For
Is
next,
it time sensitive?
we can
or-
do it for next week, or we can do it for next month. I'll
Is it
have
time
ready.
sensitive?
Do you wanna do it for this year to close out the
It
year?
would be nice for this year.
You wanna
Okay,
do it
so-
for this year?
Yeah.
Nancy?
It would be nice. to
Okay, so
Yeah.
Scott, if you don't mind, can we throw that on your committee?
So I'll go ahead and prepare that resolution.
Reminds you back.
We're doing it, okay.
Good?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's move, let's, don't worry, they're coming.
Whoa, I want that on tape.
Don't worry, there's more coming. Okay, on to resolutions, folks. The first resolution is to authorize the acceptance of a donation to the New York State Covered Bridge Society of Materials.
From, not
I'm
to.
sorry,
We want them
from.
from, yes.
From. I
We're
motion,
giving away
Ira,
anything.
Second.
all in favor, any opposed? Ed, did you wanna say anything about that, or?
Which bridge is it?
This County Bridge 192C, located off County Road 19 between Neversink and Claryville. It's an old covered bridge. It is currently, it's actually closed at this point to any form of traffic, but the Covered Bridge Historical Society has asked that we do some work onto it. It is still on our bridge inventory act, but it is a closed bridge, so we haven't. We did a pier under FEMA. Yep, we replaced with a concrete pier that has a nice rock facing, makes it look historic. Hopefully it continues to stand, but they wanted to do this. We haven't been actively putting a lot of extra work into it
It's not
because it is
open
a.
because of the repair?
Structural.
No, it was closed, the road has been closed, the bridge has been, it's on a closed road, it's actually,
long time
there's
ago.
private ownership on the one side,
Yeah,
that
since
technically you would have to trespass to get onto it. So,
So this
Okay.
work isn't gonna open the bridge?
no, no, that bridge I don't believe will ever open to traffic again, it'd be very unlikely.
It hasn't been used in years.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The second resolution is to authorize the acceptance of a grant from the New York State Department of Transportation for the SCIA Drainage Improvement and Payment Project. Jonathan Corrick. Ed? Just wanna-
Again, ongoing up there, we are required to do pavement markings at the airport, and this was improving drainage as well. This has been ongoing up there, so we bid it, and this is authorizing the funding for it.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, Ed. Okay, the third resolution is to authorize the acceptance of a grant from the New York State Department of Transportation for engineering services for the design and access road rehabilitation program. Motion, Scott, Cora, Ed?
Yep, this
Same.
is coming in off of County Road 183, the entrance into the airport, the traffic circle, and the roads into the parking lot towards 911. We've got opportunity for funding to do that rather than have to do that in-house.
Yay.
So,
All in favor?
Yay.
yeah, we'll take that when we can.
And you want to amend, well, you want to amend it. Okay, so the next resolution is to offer, have an agreement with the Sullivan County Veterans Coalition. Before we vote on this, we had a discussion at the Veterans Committee last week. And, they had if you read the resolution, they had a van donated that BOCES is, doing the work on, and they asked us if we would help them with with services like changing the oil and whatever else the van would need once it's on the road. Now, we originally put $1,500 on the resolution, or I didn't, because I wouldn't put 15. But I'd like to change that amount and put either $15,000 or $20,000, and here's why I say that. First of all, we have a $201 million budget. We have items that are, we have a line item under new initiatives. Ed needs to know the figure, but $1,500 isn't gonna go too far. And the reason why I say that is because they asked us if it was possible, if they would be able to use the gasoline from the county, since the county gets it at bulk rate. I asked Tom to look into it, we do not have an answer to that yet. However, $1,500, like I said, is not gonna go far for a van, and I'd like to change this, amend this resolution to make it either $15,000 or $20,000. Do I have a second?
No, well, wait a minute,
Huh.
you need a motion and a second
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Vote on the
Remember,
original.
yeah, so I need a,
Discuss it, right?
okay, so let me have a motion, okay, Cindy?
Yeah, I'm totally in support of this, veterans van. I had, conversations with some of the veterans that are at nursing homes, local nursing homes, and they have no transportation unless it's a medical doctor's appointment. So I'm fully in support of this, and, at the veterans meeting, Kathy brought it forward that we would maintain the van. I think that it's, obviously this morning, the conversation with the transportation plan is not including transportation
wouldn't
like this.
include this.
And the veterans have reached out to me, we can't leave here if they don't have family, and several of them are wheelchair bound. This is a wheelchair van that's been worked on by BOCES, so I'm in full support of it. I just need a little clarity on, if indeed it was maintenance, the $1,500 was for, maybe oil change and tire checks and things like that. What would fuel cost for something like this? Do we have an idea of the amount of mileage that's gonna be put on the van at this point, or no?
I don't have a specific on that, I mean, we could come up with some rough numbers on the mileage based on, we use similar vans, so I can kind of throw something together on that, but I really don't know how
The
much
coalition
this
would
will be
have to give
used.
you those figures,
Yeah.
because they're the ones who know where the veterans live, they're the ones who know what the
Yeah.
veterans need. This committee does not.
It would
Yeah,
depend on the routes that
but
they
hold
would
on
have.
a minute. The van that they're gonna use now, they don't have a handle on those figures, because now that they have this new
Never
van, they're
existed.
gonna be doing more services to the veterans that are homebound, that can't get to the local doctor,
The
so.
coalition doesn't have a
15
van now, this is the
There-
first
that's what I'm
time
saying,
they're
right, but I'm
having it,
saying
so they don't have any figures at this point.
$1,500 is not gonna cut it, and I don't want Ed to come back to, since we're talking about the budget, and this is the budget season, out of a $201 million budget, I don't think $15,000 or $20,000 for new initiatives is a lot to ask.
Well, I think,
Kitty was next, and then
okay.
Cora,
they've
Kitty.
been working so
Okay, I
hard
wanted
to
to
get
ask a
van.
question regarding this, and I understand, and I am also very much in support of the veterans. My concern is that we should be paying absolutely for the maintenance of the new vehicle that's coming into being, but to pick up the gas tab, I'm really not sure if if that's a sensible thing to do.
Kitty, we're not, I'm sorry, okay, we're not gonna pick up the gas tab, if we can, we may allow them to get the gas at the county rate.
Okay.
Which is the government rate, which is what
Okay.
they save a lot, they would save money, but Ed,
Okay.
but Tom said he had to legally look
at
into
that.
that. But I'm saying if they can get it at the county rate, which is, I think is not, is,
That I could
Right.
go along with.
then I'm
but,
saying the
you know,
$1,500, no, we're not gonna pay for the gas, we're gonna get it.
Okay.
So I don't think that $1,500 is gonna be enough, I think we ought to all agree, so, the motion is, Cora, I'm sorry.
No, I just think that, given the challenges that the veterans have had over the last 3 years that I've been a legislator, and the number of things that have fallen through because there is, let them have the gas.
No, definitely
Legally,
get it at the
legally, you
county
might
rate.
not be able to do that.
So when will we find out legally whether it's possible or not?
Okay, so Jonathan?
So, just so I get the timing of this right, so we pass this now, this covers you from December 11th to December 31st?
Next year.
Well, it won't go into 15.
No, we wanted to do
The
this.
15 was an estimate for the maintenance cost for a year.
No,
No,
I'm talking.
2015.
I'm just saying, are we premature in doing this, should we wait and do this resolution on January so that covers the full year of 15?
Why not do that?
Because it doesn't carry over, it's gonna close out.
No, it's for the
No,
2015
it's for the
budget.
2015. In other words, Ed, did you put a,
I don't think we had a date in there,
Right.
I understand what
You
you're
understand what I'm
saying.
saying? It's just,
Yeah,
I think we should do it, I just don't know whether
Just
we should
amend
do it in the
it.
January meeting, so it covers the full 12 months.
Jonathan, we can amend the date to 2015, and I'd like to amend the amount. So I need the motions on the floor to amend it from $1,500 to $20,000.
Okay, and who's the
15
second?
reasonable, Ed?
For gas.
1,500 was what we came up with for oil changes, windshield
Just,
wiper,
yeah,
Fine.
basically.
fluids.
15,000.
Kathy,
Is
who
Oh, I
seconded
don't,
your
without knowing the
motion?
miles and
No,
the
you
amount,
made the motion.
we have no clue.
It's not gonna be gas.
I need a second.
If it's not gonna be gas, why?
It's gonna be gas at the county rate if we can get it.
But they're gonna pay back that, am I correct?
How are they gonna pay it back?
Are you
What they-
giving them the gas, or are they going to pay us for it at the county rate?
They're gonna pay it at the county rate.
So we don't have to worry about gas, that's on them.
But it's the additional maintenance of the van,
I
whatever.
understand
Okay.
that part, but there's no gas involved. Get that clear.
Realistically, Ed, what does it cost to maintain a vehicle for a year?
There you
I'm
go.
not positive on this one only because of use.
Right.
Again,
It's
it
an
would
old
be
vehicle.
money into a fund. If we didn't use it, it wouldn't be used.
Right.
It would be, if I understand correctly, we'd set up an account, we have money in it. If we use it, we use it. If at the end of the year it doesn't get used, it's taken back. And if we do, if we exceeded it, we'd be back here asking for it.
Is 15,000 reasonable?
I think so.
To maintain one van for a year?
I think that
100
should
or
cover it. I
15,000?
don't, no, 15 grand, I don't think we should have to come back for. That's what I mean. That's probably a number we
Now
won't
you
be
should
back
buy a
up
new one.
here. We wouldn't be back
I'd
here in
rather him
September
have the-
saying, hey, it's over.
For 30, you buy a new
Well, we're
one.
mixing-
That's what I'm saying. We should-
A motion for
we're mixing
15,000.
We'll be back here.
Second by Scott.
And we're gonna change, okay, so 15,000, and we're gonna, I need a motion to amend the date. We're gonna make it 2015.
You can't do it?
No, I just, I'm mechanically.
Where's the date?
Mechanically, you're confused.
Where's the
You
date?
can amend this
We're
to say
mixing
for the,
apples,
for
oranges, and
2015.
watermelons, all in the same conversation.
It's the accountant.
For fiscal year
Two,
2015.
okay,
It's a
Fiscal year
private vehicle
2015.
that we've agreed
Just
to
adding for
maintain.
calendar year
2015.
If Ed feels that the 15,000 is a reasonable amount to maintain the van for a year, and if we didn't cap that out, it would be sit in a fund to be carried over the following year?
Well, that would
Or
get
back into
discussed
the
every
general
year.
fund.
Okay,
If
yeah,
they,
I'm
if the
okay.
coalition got rid of the van, you wouldn't extend it next year.
okay, so we need a all in favor?
We have a motion,
All in
second,
favor?
on the amendment.
Okay.
Which, the amendment for the.
15,000 and calendar year 2015.
Change everything to
7 zip.
15.
Now the resolution as amended,
Okay.
6
What do
zip.
I know? I pissed somebody off.
Okay.
Okay, Bill,
Yes, good morning, and happy
Good
holidays,
morning.
everyone. November recycling tonnage, 332.38 tons came through our system at a revenue of $12,726.77. Our e-scrap cleanups at the transfer stations are on track, although they're going slowly with our new vendor, Rockland County ARC. Highland Transfer Station and Mamakating Transfer Station still have to be cleaned out from the approximate 3 months worth of accumulating e-scrap that
Oh,
took place
yeah.
in the period we did not have a vendor on board. So
Highland's
slowly
is
those piles are going away. And that's great news because January 1st, New York State's DEC imposed e-scrap disposal ban takes effect, which basically means we're already in compliance. But you and I, if we're throwing away an electronic device, if we thought about sticking it in our garbage bag and disposing of it now illegally after January 1st so that it ends up to the landfill in Seneca Meadows, that's against the law. Instead, what you'll do is take that electronic device and place it in the e-scrap areas at our transfer stations that are designated at no charge, so it technically can save you money. If you try to conceal that TV set in the plastic garbage bag, you're going to pay us for it, versus coming clean and just bringing it in and saying, here's my TV, where do I put it?
No cost.
And there's no charge for it. So we are technically in compliance, and we hope to have those big piles of backlog worked out over the next week.
I think you have a lot of leeway as to where you can tell them to put it, right?
No comment.
You answered my
I'll
question.
keep that one in a professional limbo.
It was rhetorical, but I knew you would appreciate
They're
it.
imposing fines, aren't they?
yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
the state is
Yes,
looking at that. And we are awaiting some verbiage and further guidance from DEC on signage for our transfer stations. So there are a couple of loose ends, hopefully the state will be resolving with it shortly. Also, being the holiday season, I'm pleased to announce about our 25th annual Christmas tree recycling drop-off effort. If you have a used Christmas tree, feel free to place it in your backyard first for the creation of natural habitat. Or if you don't have a big enough backyard, bring it into any of our transfer stations, also free of charge. Our DPW folks will be chipping those trees up and using them in parks and landscaping projects around the county. And that's always a big program for us. It's small in tonnage, but folks really look forward to that.
It's good
We really
PR.
appreciate it.
It's good
Okay.
PR.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Well, lastly, we have a new scrap metal vendor on board. Upstate Shredding has replaced the former Sims Metal Management. Our price has changed slightly. We've seen a drop from $251 per ton down to $192.51 per ton, and that's in accordance with global scrap metal trends. Fuel costs have declined, which means actually recycling metal becomes a little bit less cost effective than manufacturing, making metal from new. So the disparity in there means the value of the recycled content material actually falls as well. But it's still a great revenue for us, and we hope to see that continue. And that's what I have for the month of November.
Cindy?
Yeah, I just had a question, having to do with the report, with the tonnage. Some of the towns were, wanting to review the tonnage allotments because they were looking at numbers from 2005, I believe. Is
Yeah,
that something that we can do in 15?
Absolutely, anytime you'd like to, we can do that at any point. There's, whether you wanna change the cap or not. We have done this, and one thing, and whenever we assign these tonnages, we've never really had a line item for it either, so it's always, if we'd like to look at that, we
What's
could
it-
look
what
at
has-
that as well for solid waste, to have an actual line item
That's
to
a good
put
idea.
into there. Because in the past, when we had done it, it was only airspace at the landfill, it didn't actually have a hard cost associated with it. It now has that hard cost of $75 a ton for the 700
great
tons that
idea.
we currently allocate for municipal
So
cleanups.
roughly, if we went up, say, 10% over all the towns, what's that cost?
Another 70 tons at $75 a ton, 40.
About $5,000.
Yeah, 49,
Okay,
5,000.
okay, yeah.
15,000.
Okay, we'll have
Okay,
that.
and one more question. Talking about the historical venues, Fort Delaware and your Minnesota Battleground, there was a discussion about a partnership with Delaware Land Company. Is that coming up on an agenda?
It's not, it wouldn't be with an individual one. If we do anything, you can't just do it to one particular vendor. It would have to be RFP'd, and we are looking at that.
Okay, so is
And
that
what,
coming up?
what it would actually
It's
entail.
not immediately coming up on the executive agenda, we're in
Okay.
discussion, but it will come on.
Okay.
So I'm not clear on what the status is right
We're reviewing exactly what we would do. We had a request by a outside agency to come in and do something. You would have to open that up to, as an RFP process. And in the RFP process, what we're going through is, what are we really looking to accomplish by doing this?
now. Right.
What would be their deliverables, at the end of the day, if we were to do this? What would be the outside vendor, if we were going to do this? You know, what would we expect of them? And,
Yeah, I
so all that
understand
goes into an
it's increased
RFP.
marketing, another way to try and market these, historical
Mhm.
places. And maybe set like a time frame and say, okay, in X amount of time, see how this relationship partnership is working. Is it truly increasing visitorship? I think that was the piece.
But one of the issues with all the, what Delaware, Ed lacks the funding he needs to run those, am I correct? To run those facilities, he doesn't have enough funding. So that's part of the issue. So if you wanna give him another $50,000 to run those facilities properly, then we can do that, but that's been part of the issue, right, Ed?
That's
He
always
doesn't
been part of our-
have the money that he needs.
Right, so a partnership with an entity that could give it a try and see how they can market it better, I think that's a good thing. I would support that.
Like I said, we're looking, that's
what we're
part of
looking
this time we're looking at, and we're dealing with the legalities, what would be required from a legal standpoint. If they're putting in money, if the county putting in money, who's
So you're putting it together and then
responsible
maybe
for
in
what?
January, we'll have
I
a
heard.
discussion
Thank you.
and,
Yeah.
maybe Alan, is it Alan?
Alan has been, yeah.
Be happy to continue the discussion.
Okay.
But do you have a date in mind as to when you'd want an RFP out there? Because once you put an RFP out there, then there's another 8 weeks minimum before stuff comes
Well,
back
it'd have to be
in.
before
Yeah, I
Memorial Day.
mean, it wasn't something we had come up with, oh, we wanna do this. It came in as a request to us
Right.
just recently, so
Right.
we're trying to work on it as quickly as we can.
There's some legal issues
but
that
we
But
wanna
you
make
don't have
sure.
any date in mind?
Not yet.
Okay.
So we'll continue that discussion in January, then you'll have some more answers for us, right, Ed?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, public comment?
Yeah,
Ed, Ken?
yeah, I gotta go back to transportation, my fault. Couple of thoughts. With better transportation, maybe less cost on social services, because people can get to work. The other problem we've always had a problem with is that business schedules for employees don't always match up with transportation schedules. And somebody talked about privatization. Privatization works, but usually with subsidies, and we do that now with short line bus, so don't think that we're gonna get away from putting any public dollars in any of our endeavors. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment?
Just quick, Sullivan County community students need better transportation.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do, thank you. Motion to adjourn? Okay.